Hey guys, what's happening? It's Jared, as I'm sure many of you know. In case you're new, welcome to InformOverload. We cover all types of news from politics to science to really anything every day. I'll be answering some comments from a previous video as well at the very end of this video, so you gotta stay tuned. Today we're telling you guys about the top 10 craziest conspiracy theories, part 2. So starting us off at number 10, we got theories about the missing Malaysian airplane MH370, which hasn't been found since its disappearance on March 8, 2014. This plane was set to travel from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia's capital, to Beijing, China. However, it ended up mysteriously disappearing with none of the 227 passengers and 12 crew members' bodies ever to be found. The plane lost contact with the control center just under an hour after takeoff, with claims that no message or distress signal was ever sent out. It went completely off track going southwest and lost contact with the military radar about an hour after losing contact with the control center. Although many believe the plane might have had a malfunction with its gas tank, causing it to crash, others believe it might have been a terrorist attack. Multiple countries, including Australia, China, and Malaysia, have been searching for debris for the plane since its disappearance and have claimed to have found pieces of debris, but others believe it may just be a cover-up. These pieces of the plane, which include a flap and a section of the wing, were found. However, they washed up on the opposite side of the Indian Ocean, near Africa. On top of that, majority of the debris has been found by volunteers, not the search teams, which again has a lot of people wondering how average people have been more efficient with their searching than a whole country's technology. To this day, there still isn't much known about what happened to the plane, even though search efforts continue. Number 9, the Philadelphia experiment. Now this is pretty cool being, a half Philly boy myself, but again, not so sure I believe it. This has been claimed to be a total hoax by people all over the world, but a lot of people do really believe it's true. It is a little far-fetched, but I mean, never say never. So the story here is that in Philadelphia on October 28th, 1943, the US Navy tried to actually make a ship go completely invisible. The US Navy claims no such thing ever happened, but the US has been accused of other things that have turned out to be true, which they've actually denied. We'll get into that a little bit later though. Dr. Franklin Reno was apparently the man behind the experiment, which required him to figure out the science of how much energy and equipment he would need to make a ship go completely rogue. After an initial experiment in July of 1943, some say the boat was replaced by a greenish fog, and those on board complained of nausea. Because of this, the Navy decided to just make their ships invisible to radar, not people. However, after a second attempt in October, reports claim the ship completely disappeared from Philadelphia, only to return a few minutes later. So a lot of people are wondering, where did it go? Well, a US naval base off the coast of Virginia, about 375 miles away, report that they saw a similar ship to the one in Philly appear for just a few minutes before disappearing. Again, it may seem far-fetched and this has been denied for years, but if you do your research, there may just be a reason to believe it was possible. Number 8 is the disappearance of Shergar the horse. Known as quite possibly one of the best race horses of all time, Shergar won major derby titles and was even awarded the European Horse of the Year. After his record-breaking seasons, racehorse owners were willing to pay up to $120,000 to have Shergar impregnate other horses in hopes that the baby of the horse would have some of the talents that Shergar had. Unfortunately, on the night of February 8th, 1983, this horse was kidnapped with claims that the IRA was involved. Jim Fitzgerald, Shergar's former groomer, opened his door that night to find 6 heavily armed men pointing guns at him. They kidnapped the horse, which Jim took to them, and also made Jim get into a separate car from the horse. Jim was eventually let go a few miles from his house, being told not to call the cops and to walk without looking behind him. He made his way to a village and called his brother to tell him what happened. Oddly enough, it wasn't until about 8 hours after the abduction that the cops found out about the incident. Jim's family was okay, however the horse was still missing. After demanding a ransom, the kidnappers agreed to only talk to Derek Thompson, a horse racing journalist. He was flown to Belfast to negotiate at the Europa Hotel, however could not come to an agreement with the help of the police. The next day, Thompson received a call saying the horse has had an accident, he's dead, and that was it. To this day, the horse's body still hasn't been found, with many believing his body was dumped in the ocean. Number 7 is the creation of the deadly incurable virus AIDS. Although there is widespread belief that AIDS started in Africa, in which a monkey infected a human and had the disease spread all over the world, some claim the US government actually created the disease itself. During President Richard Nixon's time in the office, he tried finding a cure for cancer, which many believe turned out to be an experiment gone wrong. All this happened around the time AIDS was first discovered in the United States, making many people believe it's too convenient not to be true. Now others actually believe the virus was created by the US government to completely wipe out the African population so the US could eventually take over their entire continent. Although that one is a little more far-fetched, there is another theory that the US government also wanted to wipe out the homosexual community in the US. By injecting people with the hepatitis B vaccine, they were in fact actually just infecting the AIDS virus into gay men all over New York and LA. Number 6 is the theory of fluoride in drinking water. Now it's no secret that there is in fact fluoride in your drinking water. That's not the theory here. It's the reasoning for it that has people wondering, Why? According to multiple reports, fluoride is put in drinking water to help protect those who can't afford to go to a dentist in countries all over the world. It doesn't affect water's appearance, taste, or smell, and has been proven to reduce cavities and slow the process of tooth decay. With that being said, many believe the real reason for fluoridation in water is to actually benefit the government. Some believe it'll actually cause illness in people, making them pay for medicine, while others believe it actually slowly destroys a part of the brain that helps with self-control. In essence, people believe that the government is trying to dumb down the human population, eventually giving them the power to brainwash everyone. Not so sure I'm necessarily a believer in this one, but I will say every time I give my dog fresh water and tell him to sit, he usually does obey. Alright, we made it to the top 5. This is where the stuff gets real serious. Number 5 is Project MKULTRA. This was a US government experiment that involved trying to control the minds of humans by unlawfully giving citizens doses of LSD. The theory here isn't that it happened, but the purpose behind it as well. The CIA conducted these tests on volunteers who most likely didn't know what they were getting themselves into. Of those volunteers, Ken Kesey, author of the book One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, was one of them. The experiment was also responsible for the death of a Dr. Olson, who was a biochemist for the US Army, who was given LSD without his knowledge. Although the US government claims Olson had a nervous breakdown which eventually caused him to commit suicide, some believe the US government had actually murdered him to make sure he wouldn't release any information about the experiments. After more research, it had been determined that Olson was actually knocked out before falling, classifying his death as a homicide. To this day, there isn't much known about MKUltra because a lot of the information has either been destroyed or lost. How convenient. Number 4, the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami/earthquake. Dubbed the worst tsunami of all time and one of the deadliest earthquakes, this natural disaster is responsible for over 225,000 deaths. Although originally believed to be a natural disaster, some think it was in fact man-made, accident or not. The disaster destroyed the homes and lives of people all over, including Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, Thailand, and Malaysia, to name a few. However, some believe the real reason for the disaster was because of nuclear weapons used by India, Israel, and the United States. Newspapers in Egypt and the Middle East claimed due to India's heated race against Pakistan for nuclear weapons, they decided to team up with Israel and the US. By doing so, they tested out nuclear weapons, which in turn caused the earthquake and then the tsunami. Some believe it was an accident, while others believe those 3 countries are planning on wiping out the entire Middle East in hopes of taking over. Now coming at number 3, Princess Diana was murdered. Now some people originally believed the reason for the fatal crash that killed Diana, Dottie Fade, and her driver Henry Paul was caused by the paparazzi. Initial reports claim that they were chasing her all around, and in an effort to escape them, Paul drove much faster than he normally would, causing him to lose control and crash. However, after further investigation, it turned out no paparazzi were anywhere near the car at the time of the crash. So what really happened? Well, there's a theory going around that a white Fiat Uno caused the crash. It was reported that the car was seen trailing Diana's car, and after the crash in the tunnel, people saw the white car drive out the other side. First off, why flee a crime scene? On top of that, forensic investigation even admitted there was white paint on Diana's limousine. After investigation, it was determined that the car possibly belonged to James Anderson, a millionaire photographer. His car had also had a broken taillight repaired not long after the crash. To make matters even worse, in 2000, Anderson was found in a remote piece of woodland in his car, burnt to a crisp with 2 bullet wounds in his head. On top of all that, the car was locked from the outside with no trace of keys around. This was considered a suicide, but something here just really doesn't add up. Number 2, the Denver International Airport. What could be so weird about an airport, right? This airport was created in 1995 because Denver's previous airport had problems with runway space and really just wasn't big enough to accommodate those flying. So this new airport was made, however, it went over its budget by more than $2 billion. So first off, well, where did that money even come from? People have also noticed that the airport itself takes up much more space than it actually uses, and the runway somewhat resembles that of a swastika. Maybe it's people just looking too much into things. Well, then can someone explain the 32-foot statue of a horse on its back legs with red eyes? Or maybe the murals all over the airport that for whatever reason seem to depict total world domination and the extinction of the human race? I mean, there have been theories that the New World Order, an organization of the elite, funded this airport because they secretly built a bunker underneath. The bunker is where the New World Order is set to go when they decide to end all of mankind. So as scary as it is, it does sound again a little crazy, but who am I to say it's not true? Now before I tell you the number 1 craziest conspiracy theory, let me say I don't necessarily believe in any of these. Some are more believable than others, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're true. This one is just, well, let me tell you about it. Number 1 is the lizard people. There are claims all around the world that the human race is in fact being brainwashed and influenced by reptilians. The idea of reptilians on Earth was popularized by David Icke, a conspiracy theorist who believes these half reptile, half humans are anywhere between 5 and 12 feet tall. There are also claims that they could shapeshift, drink blood, and control everything. These lizard people are claimed to be in the White House, banks, the media, pretty much anywhere you could think of. Much like the Illuminati and the New World Order, the lizard people are believed to be a powerful group that have controlled the human race for thousands of years. As crazy as it does sound, technically there's no evidence that the lizard people don't exist. So really, maybe they are real. Anyways guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This was part 2 of the craziest conspiracy theories. If you want to check out part 1, you can click right over there. But now it's time to answer some of your comments. So in a video we did titled Everything You Need to Know About the Black Moon, you left me some pretty crazy comments. Mr. Challenge said, Jared, what is your favorite Drake song? That's a great question. I'm a huge fan of Drake, as I mentioned before. I do like a lot of his music, but my number 1 Drake song will probably be With You by Party Next Door. I've actually used that same answer in a different question about my favorite song, so I'm gonna say it's definitely With You from his album Views. Dwayne Jones said, how many punches do you think your chin can take from Conor McGregor? Well, Dwayne, I'm not really sure. I mean, McGregor is a professional fighter. He probably knocked me out with 1 punch, but I do have a pretty big chin, and they don't call me the Crimson Chin for no reason, so maybe I'll be able to knock him out with 1 shot from my chin. Conor, if you're watching this, I'd like to get in the ring with you. My chin against your fists. The Foxy Galaxy said, hey Jared, do you think that toast was named after the toaster, or was toaster named after toast? That's actually a really big question. I'm really not sure how to answer that, but you know what I do think? Maybe this will be answered in our other channel, Life's Biggest Questions. You gotta check out that channel because they will answer questions just like that. Personally, I'm gonna say the toaster was named after toast, just because if they used the bread and toasted it, and then ate the bread, they were like, this isn't still bread, it's different, so let's call it something else. Let's call it toast. Then what's that thing? That's the toaster, because it adds to this bread that's toasted. Anyways guys, hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. Be sure to leave me a comment so I can answer it in the next video, but until then, have yourselves a great day.